Welcome to the Experience of the Soul podcast with Cynthia Alice Anderson, a weekly show helping you grow, prosper, and evolve. Today, episode 359, Spiritual Cinema, The Chosen. And now, Experience of the Soul.
Hello and welcome to the Experience of the Soul podcast. My name is Cynthia Alice Anderson. I am the host. I want to be the first to say to you, Happy Cinco de Mayo. It is a wonderful day of celebration, I know, especially for Mexicans, Mexican Americans as well. And I don't know, Americans love a good party. Unfortunately, we've lost some of the meaning of Cinco de Mayo, but that's what I love about our show is we bring back all that goodness. So we're welcoming you to this show today. I'm really excited. It's another Spiritual Cinema Day, and I want to introduce my amazing producer, Mr. Sean Kilgore.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. Welcome, everybody, to this special Spiritual Cinema edition of the Experience of the Soul podcast. This is episode 359. We're super excited about today's episode. We're diving into The Chosen. So for those of you who don't know, The Chosen is a groundbreaking television series, that brings the life of Jesus and his followers into a powerful new focus for all of us. So we're going to get into that here in just a little bit. Before we do, though, we're starting a new segment today, This Week in Spiritual History. So a couple things we want to acknowledge that are happening around today. So today, May 5th, of course, is the day that many Buddhists commemorate the birth of Siddhartha Gautama, who became the Buddha. So this day sort of celebrates his teachings of compassion and mindfulness and the path to enlightenment. It's a time for reflection on inner peace and the pursuit of spiritual awakening. So not only are we celebrating that today, May 5th, but of course, as RCA just said, it's Cinco de Mayo, right? So we're getting back to, of course, it's primarily a cultural celebration. It marks the Mexican army's victory at the Battle of Puebla. But Cinco de Mayo also actually serves as a reminder of resilience and unity. For many people, it's a day to honor their heritage and the enduring spirit of community and freedom that they bring. And one other day that is happening this week, this coming Thursday, is the National Day of Prayer. So this is observed every year on the first Thursday of May. It's the National Day of Prayer that invites people of all faiths to come together in prayer and meditation for our nation. So this actually started back in 1952, and the goal was to emphasize the role of spirituality in public life and encourages unity through shared reflection, regardless of your, I guess, religious background.
Yes.
So all of those things happening this week in spirituality.
Oh, it's so true, Sean. And it was reminding me of the show we did a while back where I spoke about our nation's motto, e pluribus unum, which is out of many one. And it later in the 50s became one nation under God as, the leadership of the country became more and more Christian based. But we all know that in America, part of the idea was to have religious freedom. And we know that there are people of all faiths that live in America. And of course, around the world, our listeners are in so many different countries. So we honor you and your faith, even though my path is, Jesus and Christianity. We honor yours. And I have always been engaged in interfaith, in meetings and prayer times with Baptists, with Methodists, with Catholics, which, yes, are all Christian, different brands of Christian, but also Jew, Hindu, Buddhist. And I have been loved, appreciated, and honored by those communities. And I do the same. And I just think today about how amazing our country and our world could be if we could simply honor each other's path to God. And today is going to be an important one for my path and journey, with Jesus. So we honor you, my friend, and we honor your path, whatever it may be. Also honoring, like you say, Mexican heritage today, and are joined as we join together in prayer. It's one of the ways that we're bound together as spiritual souls. I think that's very, very meaningful.
Absolutely. So as we pause to honor these meaningful moments across spiritual traditions, whether it's Buddha's birth or the national call to prayer or the resilient spirit behind Cinco de Mayo, we're reminded of a central truth, that the human spirit is capable of profound awakening, healing, and transformation. That's exactly what we're talking about today in episode 359 of the Experience of the Soul podcast, Spiritual Cinema, The Chosen.
Wow. Yes. And it's interesting. I love The Chosen. Whoa. I started watching it based on the recommendation of a family member. And The Chosen is really a beautiful account of the gospel stories, the true gospel stories of Jesus's life and ministry. I started to say Jesus, and yes, it is about Jesus, but it's not only about Jesus's life and ministry. And what's so amazing about it is, they started with very little budget. Of course, nobody thought this series was going to do anything, and it has really just exploded, not only around the country and in the U.S. but around the world. And one of the things that seems to touch the person watching and the listener is how the stories include some of the military, leaders, the Jewish leaders, the common people, the disciples. What someone in the marketplace might have felt or thought or looked at, what lens they may have looked through, from the tax collector to Simon Peter. So, we get to know in the story intimately what the disciples may have gone through. And of course, that is artistic liberty because we don't know every single fact day to day. Nobody was in biblical times, following Jesus around, with a legal pad or an iPad. These were oral traditions that most of which were written down 70 years after Jesus lived. Now, interestingly, in The Chosen, I will mention that the man who plays the tax collector, as well as Mary Magdalene, do the tax collector, of course, is Matthew, but they do show them writing a little bit as the stories go on. But we know that most of the stories written in the Gospels were written, 50 to 70 years after Jesus lived. But what has been so beautiful to me about it is the relevance of Jesus's message today, the accuracy of the reenactment of the Gospels. And I will mention that, culturally, people were not giving high fives and fist bumps during the during the time, Jesus's time on earth over 2,000 years ago. And so that happens a couple times, in the way the disciples interact. That said, I kind of like that they had that in there because it helps younger audiences maybe connect, a little bit with the message and the camaraderie that would have been there. And yeah, so The Chosen, I want to back up because I just jumped in. I was kind of right out of the gate this morning. I just was rewatching a couple episodes recently, and at the moment, The Chosen can be found online on Amazon Prime, and only or exclusively on Amazon Prime now. It was, I think, the first season was on Netflix, but if you want to get, season 1 through 4 and then 5 later, that's on Amazon Prime. So what's been beautiful for me too is watching Jesus, the man who plays Jesus. His name's Jonathan Romy, and interestingly, he was born in Egypt, although he's also part Irish. I find that fascinating. I think he's part Syrian, maybe as well. So Jonathan Romy has a really, really deep faith. He's married with a father of 2, and is a devout Catholic, and is very, very engaged in his prayer life and in bringing other people into his faith through prayer. And so his deep faith really guides, the way he embodies the man Jesus. But it's obvious as you watch the show, his belief and his faith and his beautiful, accurate, what feels so accurate about the energy that Jesus might have brought. I feel that Jonathan Romy is probably one of the most powerful enactments I've ever seen of Jesus and the embodiment of that spirit, those kind eyes, and that even though at times gentle spirit, the tremendous strength that was known as well. So I want to encourage you to watch it. I think I don't want to forget to mention rather that the season 5 is not out yet because I believe it's the Last Supper and the Crucifixion are out in theaters now, and then after the theatrical run, it will be on Amazon season 5. But is that what it is, Sean?
Oh, yeah. I just wanted to jump in real quick. And because just before you get too deep into it, I wanted to mention, you had mentioned that it started out with a really small budget. And this is what's really fascinating about it, is that it's the first ever crowdfunded show of its kind. So the creator is Dallas Jenkins. And basically what he did, instead of pitching the show to big networks, he went through this crowdfunding campaign through this, it was a platform called VidAngel, which became Angel Studios,
right.
which has produced quite a bit of things now. And they say the results were really historic. They had over 16,000 investors who raised over $10 million for season 1. And I believe it continues to be crowdfunded, which is really, really cool. That kind of thing has never really been done before in this industry. But,
well, exactly right. And I'm glad you had those figures ready, because I had read it quite a while ago, and I knew it was a pretty miraculous thing. And I think it really proves, Sean, so much of what we're always trying to say is, the power that was known in Jesus is available to us today. And I think so many of us have been feeling so powerless, and we're really not powerless at all. And so when you hear a story like that of something that, was just a great idea, but didn't have funding, and how people saw it and believed in it and gave to it, and it took off in such a way. And I think of the millions of people that this show has touched, and the stories of Jesus that people may never have known, because most people in today's world are not going to get out their Bible and read it. Most churches don't even actually open a real Bible anymore. It's only on a screen, or it's only on an iPad or a computer. So, which I love opening the real Bible myself, but it's like seeing the miracles in real life in this time when there was, this political upheaval, this, issue around money and commerce and finance.
Yeah.
It's kind of sounds familiar.
Right, exactly. That's what I was going to say. What's great about it is it's presented in a way that's very relatable, to today's society, to people today. So, yeah.
Right. And I think, and so thank you for mentioning that about the funding. And I think if we could all remember that, the scriptures say, if you just have faith of a mustard seed, which I don't know if you've ever seen a mustard seed. It's so tiny, you can barely see it. It's like a piece of pepper, it's like tiny, tiny, tiny. So I think this is showing us once again how a divine idea combined with the power of faith, combined with what my mom would call stick-to-itiveness, just keeping moving this divine idea forward, that as we keep doing that, as we keep moving forward, that support, love, that this divine idea will move forward. And so there are so many lessons to be learned by watching The Chosen. And it is a series, it's not just a movie. So it's 4 seasons already, and about to go into a 5th and a 6th season, I believe. And it does take you on an inner journey if you allow it to. I can almost guarantee, if you watch it, focus, not also on another device, but watch it in a focused way, that something will shift inside of you. You will learn more about forgiveness. You will learn more about how to hold quiet when people are blaming you for something, or people are, coming at you in a negative way. You will learn about more how to walk through the world with this faith and this knowing that God is with you and that God hears you. And if that's all you get out of it, that would be a very powerful learning. I think one of the most impactful scenes for me thus far was the feeding of the 5,000. And this story is one I have studied for many years. And I think I have always found it interesting that of all the miracles in the Bible, in the Gospels, there's only a few. I don't know all of them, but the feeding of the 5,000 is one of the few that's in all four Gospels. There was also a feeding of the 4,000 as well. So there is something very, very important in that story about God being able to multiply what little we have, and how faith combined with belief and trust in what little we have will bring more good, not only for us, but for everyone. And the disciples, so the way in Unity we often look at the Bible also might help you as you see some of this. The disciples often represent in our own consciousness our questioning thoughts, our disbelief, our wondering, our questioning. How is this possible? You know, the part of us that's so stuck in the third dimension consciousness of how could a miracle happen? How can this be? You know, how is he going to do it? Why? What does he mean? He's going to be, you know, that bring what little we have. We can never feed these people, you know. And I just relate so deeply with that, because I think in our world today, you know, when there's something we want to do or there's something we need to accomplish, all we see is what we don't have. And that's exactly what the disciples did. They said, "Oh, well, Jesus, should we, tell these people to go home? It's getting late." And, and Jesus said, "No, no." And I just loved Jonathan Romey's portrayal of Jesus in that. And then how they showed, the story briefly of feeding the 5,000 is basically they gathered together what little they have, it's also called the story of the loaves and the fishes, And the idea was not only did it multiply and was there enough to feed the 5,000, and of course we know the 5,000 didn't include women and children, so there's probably, 15,000 people there. But we learned from the gospel stories that not only was there enough to feed the people there, but there was even some left over. And to me, that speaks to the abundance of God and the goodness of God. So it's like, if we could apply that idea to our own lives, like, is there something that is going on in my life, my health? It could be around finance. It could be around my spiritual journey. It could be around, how do I move forward? Like, all I can see is that I feel stuck. Then the work becomes seeing what you do have, presenting that to God, and do as Jesus did. I know, God, in advance, he gave thanks. I thank you, God, for having heard me. That's what the scripture says. And then Jesus blesses it. And then it begins, as they hand it out, it begins to multiply. So it's like, if we could just believe that God loves us, if we could just believe that God's will for us is good, and if we could believe that this struggle that we're in, that there is a miracle on the other side of the struggle. But the faith, the trust, the belief, the presenting it to God, the not trying to solve the problem on our own. And I think that's what so many of us do. We try to solve the problem on our own, and then we wonder why it doesn't work. We haven't invited in the sacred to help us, to support us, to move us down the road, to, teach us what the next step might be for us, because we haven't had enough faith to bring it to God. And friends, there's a real vulnerability and naivete in the type of belief I'm meaning. When my mom would pray as a youngster, I would hear her, and I her humility always touched me so deeply. She always, bowed her head and put her hands like a little child might, something like, "Dear Jesus, please help us." It was so, so sweet. And her belief in the help coming was next, so I hope, my friends, you can have a meaningful experience watching this as well. And I hope you might be able to see the work of Jesus and know that even in our time, that the power that Jesus had is possible to know, experience, and embody. The scriptures say that you have to become as a little child to enter the kingdom. What this means is a childlike belief, naivete, and trust that God is our source, just so much the way a child trusts its parent. And I know there's some of you out there saying, well, I didn't trust my parent. Even more reason to trust God. Because I've had a lot of people say, well, I can't think of God as father because of what my dad did or what my dad said. And I say, well, God is the ultimate father. Think of God as father, replacing the negativity of your earthly father, and so to do all of these things, to be in the struggle of whatever you're trying to move forward on, to be as a little child, to have faith and trust in God, creating increase in your life. All of these things take your time and your energy to commit to doing this spiritual work on your own. You have to set aside, maybe on a weekend, a couple of hours to sit and work with God. Maybe it's 15 minutes, maybe it's half an hour, but you have to start somewhere in working with God on this. I think sometimes we think we can find every answer we need for everything on our phone. Well, let me just Google it and see if, there's some online guru to tell me how to manifest, instead of just doing the work of our soul, getting quiet, being with God, and having that childlike belief, that childlike naivete, which is what is needed, Jesus says, to enter the kingdom. To believe that it is possible even. But it will require some time. It will require some energy. It will require you to shut everything down. And what I like to do is be outside. I bought a really inexpensive picnic table. It's kind of funny. Several months ago, it was an $80 picnic table that replaced this beautiful set I had out there. And a friend of mine called me and said, hey, there's an $80 picnic table. Do you want one? I said, yeah. He said, okay, I'll bring it over later, but you got to put it together. And I use that picnic table more than any of the beautiful sets I've had outside. Just this weekend, I was out there for probably 2 hours doing spiritual work and journaling and forgiveness work and release as my new puppy was running around and playing. And I felt so full. I felt so relieved of pressure and stress, and any worried thoughts went away. I was able to be present, to be at peace, to be in the moment and trust God in several areas that I want to move forward in my life, and no one can do that for me, friends. I have to do that on my own. I have to trust, and I have to set aside the time to work with God in this. I'm going to pause here to mention that in October, and Sean, I don't know if I gave you the dates yet either, but in October 27th through the 29th, I'm going to be leading a retreat out at a beautiful Catholic retreat center called Mary Woods Retreat Center on the St. Johns River near Jacksonville. And it is a gorgeous retreat center, and I'm going to be co-leading it with Mary Delaney. And if you've, my former mentor, she worked with me for about 10 years. And if you've haven't done something for your soul lately, I would really encourage you to think about it. We're, keeping it affordable, and there'll be more information, forthcoming in the next couple of months. but I just wanted to mention it because October 27th through 29th is a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So to do it, you're going to have to take time off work. And I did that on purpose so that you could have a weekend and a Sunday and then go into the week, into those 3 days. And we're going to end by noon on Wednesday. So you'll be able to, if you live in Florida locally, you'll be able to be home by dinner time. And if you need to fly, you could fly out by late afternoon or early evening Wednesday.
Excellent. And so let's just give those details one more time. So October 27th through the 29th, it's going to be a spiritual retreat in Jacksonville, Florida with Mary Delaney.
Yes. At the Mary Woods Retreat Center. And it is owned and run by the Catholic Church. And the chapel we're going to use the first night overlooks the St. John's River. And there's beautiful stained glass. It's a sweet old building. Second day, we're going to be more in another room that also overlooks the building with small groups and inner work. It's called the Wisdom Retreat. And it's going to be really beautiful. Yeah, I'm already working with the company on the shirts. They're going to give us a discount so we can provide everybody with the shirt for the retreat. And I don't know, it's going to be just really sweet.
And where really can we go to register for it? Do we need to?
Cannot register yet. It will be probably Unity of Daytona Beach, but that will probably be able to register by June for it.
Okay, so we'll just keep everyone updated.
Yeah,
as
we'll
that
keep you
gets
updated.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds really cool.
Yeah, I wanted to mention it because I understand that we're all busy, and Sean, I know you're busy. You and I, we work sometimes in a couple different states in a week, and we drive, we have clients, we have, families, dogs, relatives coming to stay, we all have stuff to do. But setting that time aside and setting that priority has to be done by us.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And this is for everyone, right? This isn't a women's retreat or a...
Right. Nope. Nope, for everyone.
Open to all.
Everybody.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. So, yeah, we'll definitely keep you all updated on the details of that. For sure.
Yes. So, my friends, today, I hope you learned a little something about The Chosen. And it's making you think, well, maybe I ought to watch that. Because I would love to hear if you do, because my sense is you would be able to glean and pull something from The Chosen that, didn't impact me as much. And I'd love to hear what that is. And what I just want to end with is the fact that we are still talking about Jesus's birth, life, death, and resurrection over 2,000 years later. And this is a story that will live forever. It will live forever in our hearts. And it is an important story of freedom, of faith, of belief, of trusting that God loves us, trusting that God sent Jesus for us to support our life and world, to teach us to live a holy life. And so my hope for you is that you will take some time to do your spiritual work. And yes, if you want to watch something, quit watching stuff about serial killers and murderers and all the stuff on TV that people seem to be enamored with. And watch something that will uplift you, that will support you, that will remind you of some spiritual truths that you will take with you for the rest of your life. And if you grew up studying the Bible, I think you will be delighted. I think you will be refreshed. I think you will be touched at the level of the heart, like I was, at watching these stories and watching the tremendous transformation of these individuals as they trust Jesus the Christ as a Lord of their lives. And this is my hope for all of us, and myself included. I know when I trust this presence, this Christ presence, that the Spirit of the living God is moving in and through me, that I am blessed, that I am supported, that I am loved, and yes, I am transformed into a new being in Christ. The scriptures say, behold, I make all things new. And this is my hope, and this is my prayer. So, my friends, I'm going to be lifting you up. I hope you take the time to watch The Chosen if you watch TV. It is worth watching. And please, if you will, share your insights, send us an email, or like Sean always says, you can click the text me on the bottom of the show notes, right, Sean? It's right at the top of the show notes, right?
Yep, it should be the very first thing you see. Send us a text message.
Yeah. So, yes, we'd love to hear from you if this show impacts you. And if there's another spiritual movie you've seen, let us know. The next one we're going to talk about is a movie on Netflix called The Forge, and that'll probably be, 4 to 6 weeks away. But there have been some great spiritual shows coming out, and I feel like right now it is so important for us to hold on to our spiritual journey and our beliefs, and so that we can not only find more love and peace and, serenity in our day, but that we can be a blessing to others through living our faith in the world. So, my dear friends, I thank you for joining me today. Sean and I always love to bring you the show. It's our pleasure. It's our gift. And we are so honored when you support us financially. So thank you, dear friends, for all the ways you support. And we're sending love your way and many, many blessings on the journey.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Experience of the Soul podcast with Cynthia Alice Anderson, helping you grow, prosper, and evolve. This podcast is made possible because of listeners and viewers just like you. If you would like to support the podcast with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head on over to experienceofthesoul.com/support.
The Experience of the Soul podcast is copyright 2025, Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved, and is produced by Sean Kilgore.
A production of the Soul Works Group, Incorporated.